I was going to start straight into the video, I really was, and then I decided I would be robbing you to not at least let you guess first. So I'm going to put what did it for me on the screen. This was the chart that blew it open for me. Do you see it? Because the thing that is so juicy about this is that I'm going to tell you why the sun rules Leo, and we do get down pretty deep into it, but the very base premise starts very simply. I'm going to tell you using something that you probably already know. You just didn't know it was related. Because it turns out that we have had the pieces to the puzzle the whole time. We just didn't know that some of them were in the astronomy basket. Also, this chart isn't even new. This video has been up for 6 years, which is so crazy. So, pause the video now if you need to. Make your guess, do your thing. And when you're ready to move on, let's do it. The ancients said that one day and one night for the gods was equal to a full year for a mortal. We always pass this off as being a fantastical element of mythology, but what if they were being literal? Okay, so rulership reasonings. We know that the sun and moon rule Leo and Cancer, and then the rulership follows the order of the distance from the sun after that. That makes sense. But why do the sun and moon rule Leo and Cancer in the first place? And I tried to find the answer for a long time and was never satisfied with the answers that I was getting because it was all either mythology or about the sun finding the fire element or things like that. And I was always very certain that the mythology and the fire element follow the sun, not vice versa. So first off, I was not satisfied for that. Also, as much as I appreciate those answers, I don't want a philosophical answer when I'm asking a mathematical question. Do you know what I mean? So I was looking for more of a mathematical astronomy based answer and couldn't find anything and gave up. And then much later on, this just slapped me in the face. So I bring to you the astronomical reason the sun rules Leo. Okay, so here's the chart and the rulership overlays. And the question has always been, if you take the compass directions and overlay it over the horizon and look at the sun path, why do the sun and the moon not take the top spot? Well, it turns out that they do take the top spot. The issue we were having was looking at the horizon and the midheaven when we needed to be looking at the equator. The reason this is such a pivotal difference is that in reference to its orbital path, the Earth is tilted. Okay, and I know that the Earth is tilted 23.44 degrees, and I'm tilting it 30 degrees in this demonstration in order to make a point. I will discuss the degree difference in a later video because I do have a thought on that, but let's just humor it for now and proceed. And just to clarify, I meant that the still image just barely was 30 degrees. The moving model that's coming will be the correct 23.44 degrees. Huge shout out thank you to this video because I hadn't seen videos from either of them before this, but I came across this one where Nadia Shah had Darren Star on her channel and they put up this chart, and that's what set everything off because I looked at that chart and said, that's the Earth. I feel like this would be a really good time to give a shout out to my main gurus as well. Alex from Next Level Soul doesn't do astrology, but I watched his podcast obsessively for like 2 years before he did the episode on naughty palm leaves, which is what got me interested in Vedic astrology and looking into that. That led me to Simon. I watched his intro classes. That was my first introduction to Vedic astrology. And then looking into specific combinations led me to find KRS channel. Watched his channel obsessively for many months. I also took his Briganadinari course, which was fantastic. He led me to Sunil John, and I then watched his channel for many months. Sometimes he likes to be mysterious, but he's brilliant. I've taken classes from Dr. Naogi that were very enlightening and inspiring and delved into new concepts. I love Nick DeCara's presentation style, and he really illuminated many aspects for me. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. I would not be at this point in my journey without heavily relying upon all of those souls, so thank you. So thank you, seriously, everyone, and so many random others. There's so many great videos out there. But going back to this theory, the Earth tilt drastically changes the way that the sunlight hits the earth, and I believe that this is what the rulership is hinged off of, and I'll show you. Okay, so just to kind of explain how I built the model, I'm going to explain how the celestial sphere is built in just a second, but also I tried to keep as much scientifically accurate while keeping it understandable for a demonstration. So obviously like size and scale, like distance and everything is not accurate, but what is accurate is the tilt. And instead of having the Earth spin once a day, I have it spinning once a week. So we're kind of getting like one sample day per week, because if it was spinning that much, we don't need to all have motion sickness, right? So this is enough to understand the concept while keeping it sane. Okay, I want to make sure we have a chance to really quickly readdress why there are two horizons of sorts happening in the chart, because I want to make sure everyone is appreciating what's happening there, because I find this to be just breathtaking. So the question here is, if we are tilting the pole, why doesn't the whole chart, including the ascendant, tilt with it? And it's because we need that extra equator, or whatever you want to call it, to mimic the effect of real life, because the Earth is tilted. We've gone over that. But tilted in regards to what? We've already said the orbital path, yes, but also everything else that lies on the ecliptic plane, which includes most of the planets and all the signs. Therefore, the chart becomes an accurate view of not only the Earth from the side, showing the equator versus its orbital path, but also a side view of the entire solar system. It's like it's transforming the chart from 2D to 3D. It's beautiful. Okay, now let's take that distant side picture of the universe and use it to look at the model with the celestial sphere, so you have the context of what everything is. So just so you understand a couple things about terminology and astronomy in general, when people are talking about the celestial sphere, you'll see it moving with the Earth because it's our field of visibility around the Earth. So it's just a set distance from every point of Earth's surface. That's why it's proportional to the Earth and also moves with it. The next thing to point out is that the sun is not moving and the signs are also not moving. The sun is the center of our solar system, and remember that it is a star. So remember that some of the stars in the zodiac signs have their whole own solar system. The stars in each constellation are not just hanging out together in one area on a flat plane, like we sometimes imagine them to be. In real life, they splay out across vast distances of space. The signs are really just a snapshot of the condensed region of what we can see from that assigned segment of the orbital path. Let's visualize what I mean by this. So if you imagine looking from above at all the solar systems and galaxies across space, our visibility only extends out so far. Within this visibility, if you take just the belt surrounding the orbital path and divide it into 12 sections, you can see how it makes a chain of two-dimensional snapshots that visually compress the entire wedges they represent. You can imagine that they act as windows of visibility so that you can view the stars behind it, but it's forced through that perspective. So then we end up seeing what we call the zodiac sign, but it really only exists from our specific viewpoint. This is called an anamorphic illusion, where it only casts the illusion from a specific angle, but if you change perspectives, you lose the picture. And now we can always remember that the signs do not move. The entire cosmos is not spinning around us. We are like a speck of dust, fluttering around in a room full of meditating cosmic giants. Now going back to the celestial sphere, you can see that each ball represents the beginning point of each sign. The yellow line has a dual purpose. You can see where the sunlight is most directly hitting the Earth, but it also therefore acts as our view of the sun. So you can see which sign the sun is passing into by seeing which sign is lining up behind it. You can take the ecliptic belt and shrink it down into a cage around the Earth to make it easier to track on the model. The model keeps the signs frozen in place while the Earth is rotating and orbiting. Now you have the context to understand what is actually happening in nature, while also understanding how this has been distilled down to the essential elements for the purpose of creating our simplified model. Now we can finally examine how the tilt changes the dynamics of the sunlight on the Earth. So if you look at the terminator, which is what they call the line that divides the light from the dark, this is how it would look all the time if it weren't for the tilt. You can see how it's split half and half, even across each pole, and this is how it looks at spring equinox. If the Earth had no tilt, or even if the tilt rotated with the orbit, it would always be like this. But at the moment, our pole is pointed towards Polaris, which is why we call that the North Star. So as the Earth orbits around the sun, the light display changes throughout the year. Let's take a look at how this looks. So you can see a side view of the Earth orbiting around the sun, and you can also see more of a top view in that top corner box. So the side view is so you can see that the pole itself is not changing its direction. It's continually maintaining that angle towards the North Star throughout the entire orbit. The top view is so that you can see how, because it does this, the region of Earth around the pole dips in and out of the light throughout the year. Now watch how the geographic boundary of the Arctic Circle is created by the terminator line. You can see how as it approaches summer solstice, the circle dips into the light completely, and the edge of the circle marks the boundary of the region of Earth that is completely in the sunlight. That area is not experiencing darkness at all. And then it dips the other way and is experiencing only nighttime. The edge of the circle experiences 1 day of this, and the pole itself experiences 6 months of the phenomenon. They call this phenomenon polar day and polar night. So if the sun and moon are ruling the pole, then they are speaking literally that the pole itself experiences 1 full day and 1 full night per year. So we need to ask if there's any reason to think that they would consider it in these terms, and the answer is that yes, they absolutely do, and it's been right in front of us this whole time. The term they use for the northward journey of the sun, which is from the spring equinox to the fall equinox, is Uttarayana, and the other 6 months, the southward journey from autumn equinox to spring equinox, is Dakshinayana, and what this means is daytime of the gods and nighttime of the gods. So let's take a look again at the pole going in and out of the light throughout the year with this terminology in mind. Watch the pole and pretend it's the sun. Sunrise, midday, sunset, and nighttime. And back to sunrise. Okay, so I looked up the experience of what it would actually be like to be at the pole during the whole polar day season, and it was described as the sun circles the horizon on the spring equinox, never goes down, and then it spirals higher and higher into the sky until it reaches its highest point at summer solstice, and then it spirals back down until it finally sets below the horizon at the autumn equinox. And I heard this description and I was just obsessed with seeing it, obviously. And I couldn't find any time-lapse videos, and that's a long time to have a time-lapse video anyways, but it's one of the reasons that I fought the blender for so long. This took me like 2 weeks. This was way beyond my blender skill set. At the time of making it, I was talking to ChatGPT nonstop to make sure that the science was right and whatever else for the sake of the demonstration. And anyways, I finally have it. Clearly that's what we've been using for the whole video, but we're about to actually experience the polar day and polar night. I put Shiva at the equator by India and at the North Pole, and we're going to see the difference in experience of someone at the equator versus at the pole. We're going to be looking at him so that we see the observer, so we get a better picture of it, but we're also going to see what he's seeing. So we're going to see with a fisheye lens the entire horizon, because remember, on the polar day then it's going completely around you, and rather than having the camera spinning, I figured the easiest way was to have a fisheye, and hopefully that works okay. It took an extra like 3 days to render those cycles videos, so hopefully you appreciate that. But anyways, let's experience polar day. Here is a snapshot of the Shiva at the equator by India. And here is a side view of the Earth where you can see one Shiva at the equator and one at the pole. And now, let's watch a day of the gods through the eyes of a god. Okay, let's get ready to view this. The left side is the equator view, and the right side is the pole view. Okay, so this video starts at spring equinox, and you can see that at the pole, the sun is just barely rising up over the horizon. But instead of rising and setting through the day like it is at the equator on the left, it is just slowly circling the horizon, never going down. You can see the shadows spinning around Shiva. It spirals higher and higher into the sky, but never reaches the zenith of the sky like it does at the equator. It reaches its highest point at summer solstice and then begins its descent down. And then it is the sunset for the gods. The sun disappears below the horizon, but unlike the few hours it is gone for the mortals, for the gods it is gone for 6 months. The winter solstice comes and goes with no shifting of the light. After a long slumber, the spring equinox approaches and the sun is finally seen once again. Okay, so I guess you could distill the theory down into saying that I believe that rulership is based off of latitude.
Let me stop and throw in a last minute correction here because I think that was a poor choice in wording. What I meant to say is that I believe that rulership is intrinsically tied to latitude, not necessarily based off of it. I think that it's based off of the sunlight, maybe angle intensity or speed, like the order in which the different regions receive the sun rays. I don't know. I'm obviously not solid on that part, but I just know that there's a relationship here and it matters.
And we should actually pull back the chart from the beginning because if you didn't see it originally, you can probably see now and appreciate what it was that I was looking at, that you can see the tilt of the axis as well as the lines of latitude all encoded right into it. It's even in the right orientation. Like, what a gift. So thank you. Seriously. And I feel like it's pretty strong theory. And if it is true, then it's just the tip of the iceberg of opening up a whole new door of how to look at things and associations and different things. This is definitely one of those snowball subjects where as soon as you see that first thing, then it breaks open a whole new world. So I have a dozen things to say on this already, and it ranges from things that I'm pretty solid on, like this, to things that are a little more speculative. So I'm going to be bringing out several videos. So like and subscribe if you would like to pursue this theory with me. And I'll see you there. In the next video, we're going to be looking at if the sun and the moon rule the North Pole. What does that mean for the rest of the geographic alignments? I'll see you there. Bye.